What's up,
Hello.
everybody? My name is Omir, and today we have a special guest, Wasim the Dream, Wasim Hajjiri. He is a career transitioning coach. And in this whole situation, I really thought that he's going to be able, or he'd be able to bring some sort of refreshment to the situation. And the reason I decided to interview him today is because I've been watching the news a little bit, and I just saw this whole kind of the way they're reporting it and the kind of fear they're spreading into people, that I said, okay, how can I bring a sound or a voice of reason, somebody who's actually in the trenches and he's working with people and employment, and he can bring a different perspective. So Wasim is a good friend of mine. He's been working as a career transitioning coach for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
He wrote a book, a really cool book called Wasim Hajjiri, My Story. And he's been a champion and a bodybuilding champion. How many times? I forgot the
Three
number.
times.
18. Very humble, very humble. And now you're doing boxing as well on the side, right?
Yeah.
So um, uh, he's very strong mentally, and because of his mental preparation, he's able to help his clients, help his students land jobs. Okay, so I was talking to him recently, and he was telling me, "Hey, Omir, I'm listening to what's happening. I'm listening to what people are saying, but honestly, I've been coaching people even before, and their excuses or their reasons for not finding work haven't really changed. They've changed slightly, but people who couldn't find work before had the same reasons as people who can't find work right now, right? So he explained to me that a lot of it, maybe 80% of it, is mental. And I thought that was really interesting, because if you watch the news and you're influenced by the news, it always seems that if the economy is not doing well, then you're not going to be doing well. And he was really able to bring a different perspective to this whole thing. So welcome, Wasim.
Thank you so much, Omir, for the introduction and having me. And yeah, I think it's really, really important to talk about what's going on in the job market, especially, now with the COVID and even before. And so what have you been seeing so far?
I've been seeing a lot of bad news, like, okay, there's recession, depression, even some are saying. And, so many people are losing work. So many people are losing jobs. Millions is the number. And, it seems that it is bad, or it's getting bad. But I want to ask you, like, straight off the bat, if we jump into it,
Yeah.
like, what is really true? Okay, so it's one thing when you have an economy that's kind of shutting down, or the economy that's going in a, let's say, in a not so good environment, or a bad economy, and with it brings scarcity of jobs, maybe. But what's actually true? Is that the truth? If there's a bad economy, that means that you specifically can't find work, and you won't be able to find work. So I'm just curious, is like, what is actually the truth?
Okay. So basically, I've been doing this for a couple, 2, 3 years now. And I worked with people before all of this COVID happened. The economy was in the best that it's ever been. I'm talking about not just the economy, even let's talk about more specifically the job market. So even going back to January, because all of this kind of escalated in March, everything was on fire. The job market was on fire. All of the companies were hiring. Also, the economy was booming. Everything was perfect. And even the unemployment was the lowest in history. But still, even when all of these great things were happening, I would talk to people on the phone and they still can't find work. And I'm talking about senior executives with 15 to 20 years of experience who used to make 6 figures and much more than that, but they still couldn't find work. Now, with everything that happened, it's the same situation. These same guys, they still can't find work. So what's going on here? Like, what is the real reason why they can't find work? So, because in both cases, when the economy was booming, they couldn't. When the economy right now is not the best, they couldn't. It all goes back to what's going on over here and the mind and the mindset. So every person that I talk to, and even over after 1,000 people, they all have this one thing in common, which is a story of why I can't get hired. And the most common one is age. I'm too old to get hired, or I have too much experience, and they're gonna pick another guy. And the story of age was when the economy was good, and now it's still the same story. In addition to the economy is not good.
It's more like what they're saying to themselves as the reason why they couldn't find work.
Yes,
exactly. Like an internal story that they're saying to themselves. So that's interesting. What was the experience that you had working with them then? So let's talk prior to this whole thing, you know? So you got a guy, what's the usual state that he was in looking for work before this whole thing, you know? So you start working with him. Where is he mentally, emotionally?
Well, before all of this, let's say when the job market was at its peak, people would come to me at a point of absolute frustration. They would be looking for, let's say on average, 8 months or more, and they're stuck and they cannot land that offer. And when I talk to them on the phone, they come from a big feeling of anger and frustration. What's that? Yeah, go ahead.
Probably even fear.
And a lot of, not just, you know, fear, because time is running out, and they're worried about their finances and their families. And it kind of impacts them more as the time, you know, after each month, it kind of gets worse mentally, because they start to go really hard on themselves. You know, I'm not good enough. Maybe I don't have enough experience, and the stories we talked about start to become a series of stories, and it kind of adds on top of what they were already thinking. So that's the biggest thing. They come, and other than just anger and frustration, it's a state of neediness, which means that they are willing to settle for anything. I just want the job right now. I don't care about the pay. Even if I take a pay cut, that's the state they're in. And all of this shows up as they are applying. When you talk to a recruiter from that kind of state of neediness and frustration, you will lose him right away. And if you go into an interview, it's the exact same thing.
Interesting. And how would you say, or what would you say, what is the state that when you speak with people right now in everything that's going on, what's the emotional state and mental state that you meet them in?
So basically, you mean when I'm talking to them and figuring out what's going on?
Right, because before you said it's more about the age and things. What are some of the things that are telling you right now?
So right now, the story has changed into, first goes back to the age, and now the economy is bad, so I'll never find work. You know, so that's the biggest story. So the economy is bad, or there's not enough, what I constantly hear, there's not enough jobs on my level, on senior level, or my industry completely tanked and I don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm. I see. So on top of the story of I have too much experience and I'm too old maybe, now it's economy is bad and my industry tanked, there's no jobs out there. So what's the mental state that you kind of find them in? What's the emotional state? What would you say? What are the emotions behind it?
Well, now it's worse. It's obviously it's worse because on top of all of that, there's a big factor of fear. Because as you talked about the media, you know, the media is going hard on the negative sense. You know, when you opened up the TV, you feel like it's the end of the world. It's end of days, just like that movie. So that also on top of the, what they already were thinking before all of this happened, now they're not in a good place at all. Mentally, very far away from where you need to be to start landing the jobs and getting interviews.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. What is the state that you need to be in? But first, what is the actual state? You, as a person who works with people and you're, out there in the market, what's the actual state of work? Because if I look at the media, it just seems like everybody is getting laid off, everybody's getting fired, no one is getting hired, all industries are tanking. But what's the actual state?
So what's the truth, basically? So the truth is, yes, it's true that unemployment now is high. Yes, it's true that industries were negatively affected. But as we all know, some of the best companies in the world started in a recession, just like PayPal, just like Google, Facebook. All of these huge companies started at a time where there was some kind of financial crisis or some kind of recession. Just to keep that in mind. Now, what's actually happening on the positive end is that, as I mentioned, a lot of industries were affected, but other industries are on the rise. For example, the pharmaceutical companies are on a big rise because they're coming up with all of these new ways to deal with the COVID situation. So there's more job openings in that industry. Now, when I dug into the research, I actually found more than 55 companies with more than 10,000 job positions each. And when you add them up, that's more than about 800,000 positions that are opening up within the next coming months, which is May and June. So,
what are the,
yeah.
what are the positions, if I can interrupt you, what are the positions is it more like entry level jobs, or are there any higher level jobs as well?
So now basically a lot of the jobs are entry and mid-level because there's a higher demand, as an example, for different services like Amazon. When it comes to Amazon, because everything is online, so they're hiring more entry level or medium levels to do more of the shipping work. But also, since as let's go back to pharmaceutical companies, everything now, since it's remote and online, a lot of senior positions are opening up that are purely remote, which is great because when it comes to IT and tech professionals, they love working from home because you can do everything with an internet connection. So when I dug deeper, I found that there's even a couple of websites that you go to the website directly and you see all of these job openings right away, and they're all senior level. Like flexjobs.com, for example, one of the biggest ones that I saw, there's more than 100 companies with senior level positions. So despite everything negative, there's a lot of positive movement and new positions. But the whole thing is that you need to be ready on how to tackle this new rise of these different positions and the kind of the death of old industries and the rise of the upcoming industries.
Interesting. So what I'm hearing from you is it's more about, first off, it's more about the mental thing, and people who find themselves unemployed, they usually get into this kind of negative state of, will I ever find work? And there's doubt, and maybe they're applying for, they're sending resumes, that they're applying and they're not hearing anyone back. So they're getting desperate and they're getting needy, and, they just find themselves in this negative state. On top of that, if you mix in the news, which is like, no, the economy is bad, that adds oil to the fire, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing from you is like, there's still opportunity. It's just in different industries, but there's still an opportunity. And also it's more about mentally, how you mentally approach this whole job search process. So if you can maybe talk about a little bit about what is the job search process, what's the mental state that you should be in? If this is the negative thing, what's actually on the other side? How should you approach the whole job search process?
That's a great question. So basically, we talked about the first thing that you need to do is to get rid of that story completely. Just be real with yourself and sit down, tell yourself, you know what? I don't care what's going on right now, and let me focus on my strengths. What can I offer to any company? And really, I tell this to everyone, sit down and look at all of your strengths and write them down on paper. Not just on the resume, but you as a person from the inside. Like that's what companies, and the biggest thing to remember is that companies, they hire people and they don't hire resumes. I've heard this quote from one of a well-established career coach, and that's 100% true. So you need to focus on what can you, how can you differentiate yourself from all of the other people and bring to the table to any company that you want to apply to. So the first thing, that's what you need to figure out, like, okay, these are my strengths. And now the second step is you need a strategy, like some kind of plan to follow to navigate the job search. So just like we talked about, since there's a lot of changes in the market, let me first learn, like, where can I find these jobs? Now, okay, so there's flexjobs.com. How can I, because there's so many people, also keep in mind that, there's 22 million people looking for jobs right now as the unemployment is high, but you also need to stand out. So the process that I teach is just the 4 steps or the 4 stages to navigate through the job search so that you can differentiate yourself from the 22 million people and start to get traction with interviews and go in and start landing offers.
If you can talk more about how can a person find work, basically, so you mentioned these four steps that you use to lead people through. So can you tell us more about it?
Okay, so let's use Amazon as an example, because Amazon recently announced, actually last month, that they're going to open 100,000 positions, and they are in between entry level, mid, and senior. Okay, so let's say, for example, you found a manager position at Amazon that you're interested in. Let me take you through the 4 stages. So the first stage is branding, which means that you need to tailor your resume and your LinkedIn profile so that it fits with the manager position and what Amazon is looking for. So nowadays, the old school ways of, when you submit a resume, the recruiter prints it out and reads it, those days are done. So they use a special software called the ATS, which is the Applicant Tracking System. In simple terms, to save them time, they use the software so that they can find you and it reads your resume within seconds. So on your resume, you need to have specific keywords and key qualifications so that they find you and you get the initial phone screen, the first interview. So the first step is to work on finding these keywords and key qualifications and rebuilding your resume and LinkedIn profile. Now, we move on to the second stage, which is networking. Because, as I mentioned, there's 22 million people looking for jobs. So as you are applying for this position, there's thousands of others. So how can you stand out and they pick you out of the thousands? You need a personal connection within the company or someone that you know who will forward your resume to the hiring manager. So the name of the game here is to go on LinkedIn and connect with recruiters and hiring managers at Amazon. So you go in, you tell them, hey, I'm looking for this manager position. Here's my resume. And you need to do volume. You need to connect with many people. Now you will start to get traction with interviews. We move on to the third stage, which is interview preparation. Okay, so you have the manager position, you have an interview coming up. What do? It's not just about doing your homework and preparing. You need to be mentally ready. So what I suggest to all of my clients is the day of the interview is to wake up and do a 30-minute meditation and visualize exactly how you want the interview to go and go get some exercise in 30 minutes to an hour. This way, yeah.
So, like working as a coach myself,
Yeah.
just waking up on that day of the interview, and if they do meditation, if they don't even know how to do it, they're doing it for the first time. It's kind of, and even maybe to someone listening to this, I think there's a lot more in the background that goes into like getting ready for that interview. Interview is like the tip of the iceberg. So you kind of talked about branding and connecting with the right people, but um, when it comes to this mental readiness, can you talk more about it? Because I think that there's much more to it than meets the eye.
Okay, so exactly. So it is much deeper than that, because what I also work with my clients is you need to go in and really believe in everything that you're saying. And it's the only way, which means that basically you go in and you're selling yourself to these people. Their resume by this point doesn't matter, because now they want to see who you are. And the easiest way is how I train my clients to do this is really think about who you are from the inside, not so, like deeply, like your personality, your energy, your leadership style, your love for others. Not just your skills and expertise is great, but the most important thing is who you are as a person. Very, very simple. So I work with them on figuring out, okay, so when I go in, really all I need to do is really be myself, but be proud, be the best version of myself. So
When does
yeah.
this process begin? Because for amidst of what everything amidst of everything that's happening, I think that some people are not even there. They're not even in the branding or interview mode. They're like, I don't believe that I can find work anymore, or I don't
Yeah.
believe that there's positions for my for whatever I'm doing, right? Or they may have work and they're like afraid of losing work, or they just been laid off. So it's like amidst this whole thing, how important just belief that you will find something, that you will get it, that you will land an interview, that you basically the belief that you will actually get a job. How important is that to have when it comes to the actual job search? Because if I'm just scrolling through, let's say the job site you mentioned, I'm looking for, and I'm trying to apply, and I'm not getting any traction, and no one is replying. Like quickly, I'm just gonna go like, yeah, I'm never gonna find it. It's just I would imagine myself getting kind of hopeless, or just like there's no point even applying anymore. So how would you answer that? How would you answer that question?
Okay, so let's, like you said, that's a great point. Let's take it back before. So let's say, Omir, you are applying for jobs, right? And we have the first call, and you are in a point of absolute frustration, and there's no hope in your mind. You're like, you know what? I'm never going to get hired. Here is what I suggest for everyone to do as the first step. I tell you to, Omir, okay, you told me about everything you don't want, literally everything you don't want. You told me about the no responses. You told me about there's no jobs. You told me about there's no good companies.
The economy is
The economy is tanking, etc. Okay, so let me ask you, what do you want? Really? Let's take all of the opposite of that. What do you want?
honestly, I would like, if I was to answer that question from that position, I'd be like even resistant to answering that question, because I'd be like, I'm just down there mentally. Like I don't know what I want. I want a job.
Okay, so let's say you want a job, okay? Even before that, what do you enjoy doing? From all of your past experience, what was one of the best jobs that you had? What type of work did you
Is
do?
that like, I can answer that, but is that the question that, like, I feel like some people are even thinking to themselves, I don't deserve to ask myself that kind of question anymore, because the opportunity isn't there. So I don't even get to choose anymore. That's what I'm kind of feeling, where some of the people are coming from.
So
So
the biggest thing here is to start shifting your focus and energy from everything that happened in the past you know, move, like, let's remove all of the no responses, the rejections, all of that. And what are you looking forward to from today and the future? That's the first thing I want you to, like, tell my people to start focus on before we do anything else. So
what if someone was just laid off, for example?
yeah, if
And they
someone is
don't have
just
that
laid off,
experience.
this is what I tell them, and this is gonna sound crazy. Drop everything and go take the next 2 days completely off and relax. Forget about the job search, and go take a vacation, go do something fun. Now, obviously we're home, sit for 2 days at home and do nothing. Watch TV, eat Cheerios all day, don't do anything, and forget about the job search, because you need to reset your mind. That's the first step.
So resetting your mind is, how can you do that besides, let's say, sitting at home? And if
No, it's
somebody
actually, you know, like, even this, you went through this with me as well before. You told me, Wasim, for the next week, I want you to do nothing. And that's the simple exercise you can do. Is really like, first, you need to like just forget about the job completely for a couple of days. Why? Because you want your mind to kind of like, okay, oh my God, I got laid off. I'm going through so much. If you start to now in that kind of mindset, especially after being laid off, and you jump into the job search, that is the biggest mistake that you will ever do, because you will continue the negative momentum of being laid off while you are applying. So it's gonna show up in everything. Oh my God, you know, like, I'm resentful against companies. You're gonna hop on a call with the recruiter, it's still gonna be on the back of your mind. I'm really resentful, I got laid off. Even though if you don't speak it, they will feel it in the tone of your voice. And you will lose that person right away, because not only you're applying to this job, they want the best candidate. And the best candidate has to approach even the first call with a lot of energy and passion and excitement and hope. If you are not in that state, you need to take the time and build that state. So the first, yeah.
How can I, like, let's say I have a mortgage or I have bills to pay, and like I'm worrying, right? So I'm like, and almost I feel like this is stronger than me. Like, these bills and piling up, and this worry for the future is getting to me.
Yeah.
You know? So how can I get myself out of it? And what's the state that I should be aiming? Is it like, oh, I'm just chilled and relaxed, I'm not doing anything, so I'm like, I'm cool? Or is it more like, I'm ready now, I'm gonna tackle it, I have a clear head? What's the really state that you should be aiming at?
So let's say you got laid off. 1 week of planning and resting is not gonna pay the bills anyway. So let's take care of that first point. So this week of reset, let's say 2 days, or let's say a week, okay? I'm gonna give you a full week to reset. You're not gonna get to pay the bills in that week anyway, so let's put that on the side. So you need to, after you take let's say the first 2 days of complete rest, is to really figure out what do you want in terms of, you sit down and you map out what kind of companies I would like to work with. Okay, what kind of positions I'm interested in, and I have my targeted salary range. Okay, so the number one thing is, let's say you had, not a good experience in the company. I always say that the number one thing is, what kind of company culture are you looking for? So now, okay, you have an idea of what you want. Okay, now you also want to avoid listening to everyone around you in terms of what's going on in the job market and all of that, because when you start to listen to other people and what's going on, even let's say your friends got laid off, it's gonna put more fear on you. So you want to phase out the noise. Okay, so now I know exactly what I want. This is the kind of job.
Phase out the noise? What can you do to phase out the noise, except like blocking friends or shutting off TV? Is that all you do, really? Because
no,
it feels like you can get away with it.
So the biggest thing is, okay, so after you figure out, you need a daily routine to start building up that positive mindset, or let's say to start moving from the previous way of thinking into, okay, what can I do better? So all of my clients, the first day we start working together, I tell them, you need a daily routine, which includes, as soon as you wake up, you meditate, for 15 minutes, and then you go exercise for at least 30 minutes, and then you start your day that way. Now, also part of the routine is to feed your mind positive things. Instead of everything negative that you're telling yourself, when you start to feed yourself positive things, that's gonna start to shift. So in that week of reset, when you have this daily routine of focusing on what you want and mentally start building that mental muscle, that's how all of my people start to shift from the old story of I will never get a job into, oh, okay, you know, I know what I want now, but let's see how I can get there. There is hope out there. And it happened with hundreds of people and dozens of people that I worked with over and over by simply starting to build a daily routine into something positive.
So how does that daily routine affect the belief that it's actually possible to find work? It's possible that I'm gonna get employed, or even to go deeper, it's possible to find the kind of job that I wanna work at. How does that affect, like, how does that routine affect that mindset? Because it feels like if I'm just meditating, it's like, it doesn't really affect the belief that it's possible.
So if we wanted to go deeper and you said like, now we're talking about beliefs, you first need to figure out what kind of negative beliefs you have in terms of beliefs, if we wanted to go deeper. And I do go deeper with my people. So as part of that same simple exercise, you can sit down. Okay, so what is all of the rubbish that's in my mind right now about the job search? Okay, number one is I'm too old. Okay, write it down. Number two is, okay, it's my experience. Number three, okay, I just got laid off. It's not gonna look good on my resume. Anyways, so you write down first the rubbish, all of these negative beliefs on paper, and then how you start to build them on the opposite end is you exactly write the opposite of what you wrote down. So we have, I'm too old, I don't have enough experience, blah, blah, blah. Okay, what's the exact opposite of that? You write that down. And every day, part of your daily routine is to continuously look at that list and read everything that you wrote about the new beliefs. And when you go through the meditations, you will start to dig deeper into that positive way of thinking because it's always going to be in your mind. And then as you're exercising, even I tell my people, when you're like on the treadmill, whip out that list and read it over and over and over and over.
What are some of the examples of beliefs that I would read?
So old negative beliefs would be that I'm too old or I'm overqualified. That's something I heard thousands of times.
If we also take this economy right now and the whole situation, a negative belief would be companies are firing because of this situation. No one will hire me. The companies are not hiring right now, so I will never find work. And if I do, I'm just gonna find entry level, but I can't find it in my the kind of work that I want.
Exactly.
Let's say that's a negative belief. So how would you reframe this, and what would you make me read on a daily basis?
Okay, so the first thing is that I would tell you, okay, so write that down. What are you thinking mostly right now is that the economy is not good and I'll never find a job. Okay, let's say that's the idea in your head. Okay, so what's the opposite of that? The opposite of that is, since the economy is different right now, I know that there's other kinds of jobs. How can I find them? So basically ask yourself a better question. Instead of the economy is bad, there's no jobs. Okay, the economy is bad, but there will be other jobs because the economy has to move on. You know, even if it's at its lowest, there will still be jobs. But the question is, how can I find those new jobs with this different kind of economy? And even when you flip into changing that old question into the new question, you will start to naturally come up with other solutions right away.
You know, this reminds me of, I forget the name, but he was asked, what's the main problem with man, you know, so as humanity, as with the man. And this person said, I really don't remember the name right now, but he said, the main problem is that a man simply does not think. And it just what you're saying is like you kind of using your brain to sit down with yourself and you kind of being realistic, because I hear a lot of people say, well, you got to be realistic. Don't you see what's happening? And the media is not really realistic. It's actually giving you partial truth. It's not giving you the full facts. And if you really look at the full fact, you say, okay, well, there's a lot of companies that are laying off. There are companies that are hiring, obviously. So, okay, what can I do to put myself in that position is a much smarter way of thinking about whole employment, instead of just giving yourself into the feeling, into the trend, you know, what's happening, and just like letting yourself go into that and getting lost in that. You're saying take control of that and come up with quality thinking. So your thinking is not spewed, your thinking is not automatic, because that, in kind of my experience, when you allow those kind of thoughts in your mind, they just get a life of its own. So you just find yourself sitting on a couch eating chips and getting really depressed, you know. So if you use your mind in a different way with different questions, you're going to put yourself in a different state, which is going to produce different actions from your side. You're going to believe that it's possible. You're going to start applying. You're going to have a different energy, and you're going to put yourself in front of the right opportunities. So yeah, I think I get it.
Exactly.
So what I'm hearing right now is like, if you get laid off or you have been without work for a while and you couldn't find it, the first thing you got to do is kind of fix your mind. You got to fix your head. You got to get your head in the right place. And once you do that, then you can go to this other thing that you kind of talked about. So branding and connecting and stuff.
Exactly.
Okay. So maybe now you can talk about your process of, okay, now I'm in the right state, you know, like I'm feeling good. I'm doing my exercise. I've asked myself better questions. I've changed my input. So what do I do now? Do I just go on websites and just apply randomly? Or I know when we talked, you said most people don't have a strategy at all. So they're just like throwing spaghetti on the wall, hoping something will stick, you know. And you also said some do have a strategy, but because they don't have this mindset, it doesn't help. So maybe now, let's say I am in the right mindset. What's the strategy now? How do I go about applying for work?
Exactly. So now, okay, now you have an idea of what you want. You're starting to build momentum in a positive way. You're doing your meditation, your exercise. Great. Now, this is where the work starts. So let's go back to Amazon, that Amazon example. Okay, so now I know that Amazon opened up 100,000 positions. Okay, great. So I love Amazon. It's a great company, and I have I think I'm a great fit, because you need to first find where your experience fits. Okay. So now I have this manager position. Here we go. So we start with what's that?
If I can just put a question in here.
Yeah.
Somebody watching. How do I actually now, I put myself in the right mindset, and like, how do I now take what I know, so my experience, and find something? You mentioned before that, yeah, maybe the industry has changed, but the skills, you still have a skill set that can be used in a different industry. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that. How can you find the right position or the right thing to target to apply?
So basically, I mean, initially you, or I would say this is the fastest way that you can start to do this. There's a special software, and this website is called jobscan.co, in which you can take any job description, you copy and paste it there, and you upload your resume, and it automatically tells you how much of a fit you are to that position. So by using this one tool alone, let's say you're a manager, right? But manager, there's different types of management, but you're going into another industry. Like now, okay, I mentioned pharmaceutical. I saw that manager position. Let me go on jobscan.com and I will see if I'm a good fit. It has to make sense. And because you can't make up stuff on your resume, So the first thing is that you can use that website to find the best fit for your kind of experience.
Okay. And what about, you mentioned, what do you want? So if I ask myself, what do I want? So I'm just trying to see practically. So if I was working at this job, for example, and I was laid off, or, you know, how do I frame the question so I know which positions to apply?
So basically, I mean, first, as I mentioned, you know, like when you find the right fit, you need to see where you mean like where can I find the positions, right? Like where can I find more positions?
No. It's more like, how do I get clear with myself on where to go next? Like, you know, so I don't just randomly search or scroll, but I kind of sit with myself and I determine, what am I going to apply to?
Ah, okay. So where do you want to go, basically? The number one thing you have to figure out, and this is more important than anything, is that what kind of work culture do you enjoy, really? And that's more important than anything, because this even goes back to 70% of US workers are unhappy with their jobs. So you don't want to be part of that 70% just to, you know, now because, you know, you're seeing all of these opportunities, you just don't want to hop into the next one and not be happy there. So you have to ask yourself, what kind of company culture do I enjoy working in? Or from your previous experience, because all of my guys are seniors, they worked for different companies. Let's say they enjoyed working at Google, as an example. So I know that the next company I'm going to be in is going to be a similar culture to Google, okay? And obviously with any company you're applying to, you can find the type of culture that, by doing a Google search or by going on glassdoor.com. You learn about the type of company, how their culture is, because even employees, they write reviews on how they enjoy working there. Now, the second, yeah.
If I can just throw a question, why is it important to know this stuff? Why is it important to know? Because it feels like, do I even have the right to choose? You know, so because you mentioned you also worked with people prior to this whole thing, and they had similar challenges. So
Yeah.
I'm guessing you also went through them and did the same process, which it was like, choose what do you want. So I feel like from somebody who's like maybe 6 months ago, I remember a friend of mine lost her employment, and I remember how freaked out she was. She did exact mistakes that you talked about, like on the day that she got laid off, she freaked out. She's like afraid, how am I going to pay my bills and stuff? She started applying and she just got rejected all over the place, even though she had job offers before when she was working. So she just put herself in that state. And I remember she felt like she would take anything. She didn't have this right to choose anymore. So it's kind of counterintuitive that when you can determine what do you want, it's more likely that you're going to get it, versus if you say to yourself, I'm going to take anything. Even if you're open to take anything, it's going to elude you. It's going to evade you because you don't have that specificity. So that's my experience. Maybe you have a different perspective. That's why I wanted to ask you, why is it important to really determine?
And you actually said it in your example. You said your friend, while she was working and she really didn't care, she got a lot of offers. So this goes back to the same point, which is basically this mindset of scarcity. Because when she got laid off, that's when she hit the scarcity and she found nothing. But while she was in her job, because she really didn't care, she got job offers. This goes back to the same point. So if you come from a place where I can take anything, that's where you really fail. And that's when you're never gonna get the job you want. So the first thing like you need to think about is that, no, I will not settle for any job. Okay, I need the money, but get back to the point that look at what I have to offer. I'm bringing this company 15 years of experience. I have my degrees, I have everything. What does that guy deserve? I deserve $100,000, and you need to stick to that, because when you start to think of the $100,000, that's very different than I will take 60 grand and I will just take any job. Because this way you will show up as a different person on the calls when you're talking to recruiters. The mindset of, oh my God, I'll take anything, I'm freaking out, will bring you nowhere. And I've seen it hundreds of times where, let me go back to one of the guys that I worked with. This guy, he's a senior, and he used to make, you know, like more than 150K a year. And he was only in scarcity mode and he couldn't find a job for 8 months. I worked with him. Within 4 to 6 weeks, he got a job. Why? Because he simply changed from scarcity, oh my God, to this is what I want, this is what I deserve, and I will not settle for less. And that's how he showed up on the calls, and that's how he landed the offer.
So how much would you say confidence plays of importance when it comes to job search?
Confidence is the number one thing, because, you know, obviously you need, number one is actually mindset, but mindset is the confidence, because when you start to build everything we talked about by moving on to focusing on what you want, that will automatically boost your confidence. And what does confidence even mean to a job seeker? What does it really mean? It means that you think that you're the best and all of that. Yes, but what's deeper than that is confidence is you are an experienced individual. You know exactly what you want and you will not settle for less. And you are not afraid to ask for what you want. That's simply what confidence is. You going into the calls, that's what you need.
And how do you deal with, let's say you're applying to interviews and stuff, and if you don't hear people back? I know you mentioned something that's part of the process, so maybe you can talk more about that. Like, because I feel like people are sending resumes and they're applying, but they don't hear anyone back, so their confidence starts to go down. So maybe you can talk more about that.
Exactly. And that's one of the biggest thing that really affects people's confidence is the no response thing. Because, and I always hear this, you know, Wasim, and I'm constantly no response. I submit my resume to this guy, he disappears. I talk to recruiters, they just ghost me. And this is something that everyone goes through. That's the biggest thing. Like, everyone listening, no response is the part of the game. And that's what no one understands. Because everyone, when they get no response, they start to think that it's about me. Oh my God, I think, you know, I'm not good enough for this job. I don't have enough experience, or my resume is not good enough. And that's what people start to go through from the whole no response thing. So to get out of it, you have to understand that as you're applying for jobs, it's just like sales. When you are talking to 50 companies, 20 will be interested and maybe 5 will give you offers. It's a numbers game. Same thing when you're applying. When you talk to 50 recruiters or hiring managers, let's say you connect with them, only 20% will actually respond to your connection, and maybe 5 will actually hop on a call with you. So you have to get it that if these people didn't respond, it's not about you. And then let's put yourself in their shoes. Now, as a recruiter or a hiring manager, I worked with my friend. He has more than 15 years of experience doing recruiting for executives. And he just showed me what their life looks like. These guys get bombarded with messages and emails and calls. And most of the time, they simply forget to respond to you. So it's not about you. You know, there's so many other things that are going on, because they have their own, you know, like they're getting bombarded. So they might forget, because you're one of many, many people that are talking to them.
I see. So how would you say that, what's the time span that you kind of want to give yourself when it comes to job search? Like, what's an average time span that you've seen in your experience?
I would say on average, you need to give yourself 3 months, which means that you need to give yourself 3 months in terms of the first day you start applying until you can land an offer completely and start, you know, get a starting date and everything. I'm talking about the whole process. It's
Mhm.
simply because different companies, they have different interview times, and sometimes it takes more than you can, sometimes it happens in less, 6 weeks. So it's in between 6 to 12 weeks, I would say. That's the average time.
I see. Interesting. So what I'm hearing, the whole thing, if I kind of sum it up so far, is more like job search is a very individual thing. It's
Yeah.
very personal. It's not based so much on what the economy is doing, but it's based much more on how you're approaching the process. Have you given yourself enough space to breathe? Are you applying in the right way? Are you keeping your mental state, your confidence where it should be, or are you allowing yourself to sink and kind of allow everything to bring you down? That's kind of like what I'm hearing. So
Yes.
it's pretty interesting. So maybe you can talk more about, and kind of real quick, about your process. You started talking about branding, connecting, interviewing. So I've got it now. You know, I'm mentally sound. I've got my well, mentally sound is not the right. Maybe it's not the best way to describe it. I got my mindset in the right place. I got my head
Yeah.
in the right. I've decided what I want. So what's the process now? If you can just mention it real quick. What do you do with people, basically?
Okay, so basically, now we talked about everything. Your mindset is ready. Okay, so we found that position at Amazon. Let's go through the 4 stages real quick. Number one, branding. So we talked about Amazon and that manager position. They're looking for something very specific, and it goes through that software, which is the ATS. So you need to have those keywords and key qualifications in your resume and LinkedIn profile. To sum it all up, check out jobscan.co, that website I told you about, and this takes you step by step on what to do in that sense. Second stage, which is networking. Now is the time to connect with as many people as you can, recruiters and hiring managers in Amazon, so that they can help you get interviews. Now, number three, okay, so now you have the interview coming up at Amazon for the manager position. You need to really, really prepare. And more than the homework, it's the mental work. And this goes down to, okay, so the homework, what is it? I'm gonna learn everything about the company, their services, their products, their technical, like what kind of questions they're gonna throw at me. All of that is great. But mentally, you wanna go in at the absolute maximum confidence we talked about, which means you go in believing that you already got the job. So what all of my clients do is the day of the interview, in the morning meditation, they visualize themselves going through all of the interview process successfully and landing the job. And then you move on to exercise. While you're exercising, the whole time you're telling yourself, I'm so happy that I landed the job, or it feels amazing that I landed the job. You keep stacking that emotion and feeling that you already got it, so that when you go in with that mental aspect of I already got the job, in addition to your homework and your preparation, you will knock it out of the park. Now, okay, great. So that's the third stage. Now you finished the interview process. What's next? The last stage is salary negotiation. Now, the biggest key that I will give you right now, and the simple one little thing to change, is how you can get any kind of salary you want. It's very, very simple. Get over the fear of, if I ask for more, I will lose the offer. No, that is very, very untrue. And that is the biggest fear all job seekers have, because they think of, oh my God, if I ask for too much, they're going to think that I'm too expensive, they can't hire me. No, it is a negotiation, just like buying a car. So when you go to buy a car, they're offering it for 30 grand. Are you going to tell them like 30 grand? No, you're going to tell them, you know what, here's 25 grand. And you start to negotiate and you land somewhere between 27, let's say. Now the job is the same. Let's say your targeted salary range is 80K to 100K. You're going to ask for 100K right off the bat, okay? And they're going to come back to you. You're like, no, we really like, all we have to offer is 85. and you come back with, again, no, not maybe I'll be okay with 95. They will come back again and you land somewhere between 90K. So it's just like a negotiation, just like buying a car. And you coming from a position of power, simply by asking for what you want in the salary, will change the whole negotiation process. So instead of getting the 80, you get somewhere around 90 to 95. And that's always the case.
Even in this economy. So even in this economy, you think that in post-COVID and post this whole thing, you should still negotiate. You shouldn't just be happy with whatever you're getting.
COVID or no COVID, it's always the same. Now, obviously now, companies' budgets are different, right? But you still need to ask for more. Let's say if you know, as an example, go back to the 80 to 100, you want to be generous, you ask for 90K, you know, like if you want to think about it in that sense. But always, always ask for more. That's the golden rule. Never ask for, you know, like your base level, which is the 80K. Always ask for more.
Is there a specific reason? Like, will they look at you differently or like in a more positive light or something?
Well, most people actually don't ask for, you know, believe it or not, because again, of that fear. And when you ask, you'll be surprised. So let me share with you this quick story about asking. One of my previous clients, so she landed the offer, everything is great. So we started to negotiate the salary. So I told her, okay, so how much did you used to make? She's like, okay, I used to make, I think 10,000 a month. We were talking because she was on contract. I'm like, okay, so ask for, you know, 15 a month. She's like, 15. I was like, yeah, you want to ask for more. You do not ask for 10,000. And I convinced her finally. She's like, okay, go ask for 15,000. That's great. She asked for 15,000 and guess what happened? So the guy told her 15,000. I thought you were going to ask for like 20, 25. 15,000 is no problem. You got it. So if she would have asked for 20K, she would have got it. And she called me like, she was like, oh my God, I can't believe I even asked for less. And that this happened many, many times.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've kind of like to kind of wrap it up with what I kind of understood from you is like, if a person finds themselves unemployed or they have been looking for work for a while, first thing is that the job search, first thing to understand is that the job search is not, it's a pretty personal process. It's not so dependent on what the economy is doing, as much as it is on your process of how you approach it. Okay. And like what you mentioned is like, as the first step, you kind of have to get your mind right. You got to get yourself in check. So get your head right. Right. So eliminate doubt, eliminate these stories that you have in your mind about whatever it is, age, experience, whatever it is, and kind of determine what is it that you would like, the kind of work that you'd like, the kind of job that you'd like. And as the first step, which is, for me, it's kind of counterintuitive because if I'm I got laid off or I'm looking for work, well, I'll take anything, right? But you're saying, no, first sit with yourself and determine what is it that you'd like.
Yeah.
Clear your head and then determine what do you want as the first step. And then as the second thing, then be strategic about how you actually go about finding work. Be strategic about it, how you're applying, and you kind of outline the 4 steps. Branding, which is I'm guessing your LinkedIn profile and
resume and the keywords.
All right. Connecting with the right people. Interview, go into an interview, feel like you've already got the job, be relaxed, be confident. And then when you get the offer, eventually negotiate with the salary. Don't take the first offer because there's probably more on the table. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So what do you do with, maybe you can talk about a little bit of what you do. So what do you do with your clients? If somebody was...
Okay. So what I would do with my clients is, okay, let's say I'm going to use you as an example. Omir, we started working together and you are an IT project manager. That's your experience and everything is good. Okay, so now we found your ideal company, which is Google. Now, I personally, that's what I will do. So I will work with you and redo the branding for you, which means we have, okay, Google and the IT manager position. I will rip apart your resume, your LinkedIn profile, your job boards, and retailer everything to the IT project manager position and Google, what they're looking for, figure out all of the keywords, all of the key qualifications, and we test all of this in real time. So you actually see, like when you apply to the position, that you are on the top 10% of the people applying. So you see these results directly after we mix them, we fix everything. Now, we move on to the second stage. Now, for me personally, I have a huge network on LinkedIn. I have 13,000 people. So I have a list of 500 recruiters and hiring managers, which you will get access to right away. And I have 200 of them that I know personally in my network that I will do introductions for you to help you land those interviews at Google. And in addition to that, I will help you connect with the right people, the recruiters and hiring managers that you need, so that you can get more traction in interviews. And obviously, we're not gonna just look for Google, you're gonna have your top 5 companies, and you start to get a lot of traction with interviews. Now, the third stage is where I prepare you for the Google interview. Now, before the interview, we work on all of the mental stuff that I worked about. I will make sure that your confidence is at 1,000%. And then I put on the manager's hat and we do a video call like this. And I will go through the whole interview process with you based on all of the kinds of questions that Google will ask you, based on the people you're interviewing, all of these things. And I will prep you 1,000%. So you go in and you knock it out of the park and get the offer. Now, finally, is the negotiation for your salary. Again, we will practice it, me and you, one-on-one, to make sure that you're confident in asking for that 100,000 salary that we talked about. We'll go through it step by step, and that's pretty much it. That's what I work with you to do. I'm the guy who will get you the offer. I'm gonna spoon feed you the offer. I'll bring it to you.
And how long does this process last? So from, let's say I start working with you, from the time I get an offer, an average, what is
on average? It's 3 months from the first day until the day that you land the offer and get a starting date for your work.
And what's the success rate that you kind of would say?
So my success rate is around 70 to 80% of the people that I worked with, they got offers.
And what's the reason for those who don't get offers?
Well, sometimes what happened is I did get them offers, but it wasn't aligned with what they wanted, which is, for them, it's a problem, but it still, for me, doesn't count. Or the second thing is that the client that I worked with really just was not 1,000% with me in the process, which means that they didn't do their work, or they didn't show up to the meetings, or they didn't do like the homework, or sometimes they would just disappear on me and not show up. So some things were out of my control.
So let's say I am 100%, 1,000% committed. I do what you say. I follow the process. How confident would you be in getting me an offer or helping me get an offer?
So the whole name of the game is that you're going to come to me with one question. Wasim, can you get me a job offer? Yes. And the whole thing is that you leave with yourself at that position and it's done. Now, if I didn't get you the offer, you will get a complete refund of your money, because I don't deserve your money if I can't help you land that offer. And that's the guarantee that I give in my program. So you start working together, you're going to leave with an offer, or you get your money back. And we sign on it in an agreement, and everything is, is right there in front of you.
Awesome. Well, it's a win-win then. Well,
yeah.
Kind of. So if anyone would want to get in touch with you, where should they go?
So the best way to get in touch with me is through LinkedIn. Shoot me a message. My profile is public, and that's how we can start the whole process. or my number, but LinkedIn is
Second,
the easiest. You can
can
connect
you
with
just
me on LinkedIn and shoot me a message right
can
away.
you just tell us your name, your LinkedIn again?
So my LinkedIn, I'm the only one. It's Wasim, my first name, and my last name is Hajjiri. And I'll be the first one on the search because I have it SEO optimized and everything.
Nice.
So if you search for my name, Wasim Hajjiri, you'll find me in the top in LinkedIn.
All right. Well, there you go, everyone. If you're looking for work or you're looking for someone to help you um, find the job, land that offer that you want, Wasim's your guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Wasim, thank you for joining us and obviously sharing, contributing to some of the mindsets. And I hope this helps a lot of people. And yeah, I really appreciate it. I'm really grateful that you've taken the time to share this with us.
Thank you so much, Omir. I appreciate your time and thank you for having me. And I'm looking forward to helping anyone that you know and looking forward to helping anyone who's watching. Just reach out to me and we'll take it from there.
Awesome. Well, thank you again,
Thank
and
you.
speak soon.
All right. Bye-bye.